Hello and welcome to Friends with Deficits. I'm your host, Adam Sultan, and this is part 2 of my interview with Shelby Sunflower. Shelby is a sign language interpreter, an aerial arts performer, and, for better or worse, an avid motorcyclist, which led to her incurring a traumatic brain injury, or a TBI, about 5 years ago. You may want to listen to part 1 for the backstory if you haven't already, but we're going to carry on with some of the other events that have snuck up on Shelby in the last 5 years. Enjoy.
So in 2015 is when the TBI happened. So it was a year after the TBI. One of my fellow motorcycle buddies, he passed away in an accident. And then a month later, I lost my cousin. And then my cat got sick. And then my chinchilla got sick. And then just a snowball effect of losses happened. So the TBI happened first.
You also had another TBI in high school before that? Or
Yeah, I had another. God, this one I never told anybody about either. This is okay. This is gonna be the weirdest thing probably you ever heard of a kids game. I don't know. Some kids games are weird. So I was in middle school and we played this game. It was called we called it Trash Can Rodeo. So the middle school, I guess there was an issue with people stealing the trash cans that were outside. They were like the big heavy duty plastic trash cans and they have lids on them. They're like legit trash cans. And so they were chained up to all the poles outside at the school. And me and my group of friends, we called it Trash Can Rodeo. And the point was to go run and try and jump and sit on top of the trash cans. But at the same time as you're like jumping up to sit on the trash can, someone kicks the trash can. So you have to like sit on it however you can sit on it. It's like the weirdest game. I don't know why this some bored kids in a small town, I guess. I don't know. And my friend at the time, he kicked it and he accidentally kicked the lid off the trash can. And I went to go jump and sit on top of it. And instead I fell into the trash can and I fell back and I hit the back, like the occipital part of the back of my head on the brick wall of the school. And I immediately blacked out. The trash can and me fell over. And apparently I started having a seizure. My friend was like, "Ha, dude, you seized on the ground." Like we were some rough kids. Like we'd punch each other for fun. Like, oh my God. And I blacked out and had a seizure and I woke up. I don't think I was out that long or seizing that long. I honestly don't remember much at all from it. And I was just kind of dizzy and confused for the rest of the day. I did tell my parents like, "Hey, I hit my head at school. I don't feel too well. Like I have a headache." And they gave me some ibuprofen, but that was about it. I never went to the nurse or anything because I thought I was going to get in trouble for jumping on the trash cans. We used to get in trouble for it a lot. They would tell us like, "Y'all stop jumping on the trash cans." And we still just kept doing it.
Shut down that trash can rodeo.
Yeah. What even is that game? And then another time, this time I did not black out, but I honestly cannot, like the timeline and my memory is not coming to me, but it either happened before the TBI on the scooter or after. But I was hula hooping, of all things. I actually love to hula hoop. And I was going around, going super crazy and a little bit under the influence, not going to lie. And that's not good with spinning around and hula hooping. That combo is just not the best combo. And I lost my footing and fell back and I hit the back of my head again, like same occipital area on like the corner of the first floor of the apartments. This damn apartment complex, I have such good memories there. And then I have such like really severe accident memories there. I lived there for 6 years by myself with my animals. But I swear, like a lifetime of memories and friendships from this apartment complex, but also injuries. But I did not black out or pass out or anything. I remember I like hit my head and I was like, ooh, like, ow, that hurt. And I was a little dizzy, but I just like kept going and hanging out for the night. I have a hard head. I guess I'm coming to the conclusion, like, holy shit, I guess I have a really hard head. No wonder I'm so stubborn.
Yeah, hard-headed.
And stubbornness is kind of easing up. I don't know, a little bit maybe.
Has there been anything that's shown up in MRIs or anything that's shown brain injury?
No. So the only MRI that I have right now was from the ENT, and that was last year. And I had this crazy respiratory and sinus infection, so bad that like it was infected my mastoid bone. Apparently, if there's like sinus fluid, or not sinus fluid, but fluid in there, that means it's just you have like a very severe sinus infection. I also found out I have a super deviated septum, so that's a culprit of why I have such bad sinus infections. But he was mostly looking at just like my ears and focusing on the right ear, because the V&G test, where it tests like your inner ear pressure, it showed that I had a weakness on the right side. And I was like, wait, I hit the left side of my head. Why is my right side the one that's having issues? And brain 101, the left side of your brain controls the right side, vice versa. I totally didn't think about it. And that applies to brain injuries as well, and where you hit your head. And apparently like different places where you hit your head can affect, like you can have dysautonomia, where like sometimes my heart rate goes like through the roof. It'll beat like 160 beats per minute, or my blood pressure's weird. I was even talking with my therapist about it, because I told her, I'm like, I used to be able to sit outside in like 105-degree weather and ride my motorcycle and be fine. And now I can barely tolerate the heat now. And it's sad, because I love the heat. I'd love to be outside and love to do things, but I'm like constantly on the verge of passing out, no matter how much air is blowing on me, or shade, or a fan, or water, or anything. And she's like, well, where you hit your head, that ties to this part of the brain, and that messes with your, ties over and communicates with your thyroid, and you basically can't handle the heat. It changes the way that your body responds to things and communicates, which is just fascinating to me. I'm just like, wow. It just never dawned on me that could even be a thing. It's just, it's fascinating. I'm like, wow. And I'm still, like I said, I'm doing significantly well for someone who has not had any like medical intervention until now, So
Yeah.
I'm working on getting into them. It's just been kind of pulling teeth, and a lot of them are like, what? It happened 5 years ago. You're fine, kind of thing. Mainly, I want to still keep doing my live music work, and I just don't want to fall. It's a little bit of a dangerous environment, I'm not going to lie, but I don't want my dizziness and balance to cause me to get some crazy injury there, or hit my head again. I definitely cannot afford to hit my head again. I've been told multiple times, they're like, do not hit your head again, like at all. So I'm keeping that a priority for sure.
Yeah. When did you say you wanted to get into aerial stuff originally?
Oh my gosh. Oh, when was it? It was so we started interpreting for like when Sky Candy was like brand new. I would say like 8 or 9 years ago, and we interpreted for one of their performances, and I remember just like being in awe of all the performers. And then when Bedpost partnered with Wrapped Aerial Dance, and they did that for the first time, and then they've done it since then, because it's just so amazing. I'm just like, I need someone to help me pick my jaw up off the floor. Like, these people are incredible what they can do. Like, it's just, and I'm like, that looks just so liberating and challenging, and a really healthy way to address fear in a safe environment. Not like, oh my God, I'm going to go 120 miles an hour and let go of the handlebars on my bike down the highway. Like, that's not a way, that's not a healthy way to challenge fear. But this way seems a more healthier and productive way to challenge fear and really step out of your comfort zone and do something different that's also at the same time healthy for you because you're working out. I mean, you don't realize it, but you're like, oh, holy shit, wait, I've done 10 pull-ups, but I've been having fun. Like, it doesn't feel like I've done 10 pull-ups, but I have. And it's funny, like my work blazers and a lot of my shirts, like they don't fit me anymore because my biceps have gotten huge, and then my shoulders, like the whole back part of my back, has gotten very triangular and very wide from doing all the aerials. And I do not complain. I love it. I joke around and I'm like, oh, I want to take one of my old blazers and put my hands forward and rip it like the whole back. I'm a nerd. Like I love that kind of stuff, but you just don't realize you're working out, and you are, and it's healthy for you and fun. And I love the students and the teachers and the environment and the community of it. It's super awesome.
That's great. That's a good endorsement because I hate just doing pull-ups. It's like
they're not fun. Like
they're not fun. Yeah.
I mean, working out is not fun. Like, I feel like it's not. And it's crazy because now I like before the pandemic hit and the routine and the moves that I picked and wanted to do, they are very challenging. And so I was conditioning and training, I would say 6 days a week. And, people meet me and talk to me and stuff. And the last thing that anyone I feel like would think is that this girl is addicted to going to the gym and pull-ups and climbing and working out and stuff. And I am. It's just that I'm happen to do it in a different way and in circus and aerial arts. I was trying to work out just to be a generally healthier person and make better choices beforehand, and like go to the YMCA, or I tried running. My knees were like, hell no. And my old shin splints from marching band were like, hell no. And then I finally randomly gave myself the permission and also kicked my ass into gear to go take the aerial classes. And I have not looked back since. Like, I have my own rope now. I have my own trapeze. I have my own rig at home and mat. And those are definitely not cheap, but I worked and saved up for it so I could practice at home. I've loved having it during the pandemic. And it's also one that it's portable. Well, it's very heavy, but it's also portable. So I could take it and move it outside and change the height and stuff like that. And I honestly do not know what my life would be like without aerials right now. Like I do not know what I don't know where I'd be. I don't know if I would be such a strong advocate for my health as I am now, and being like, no, it's okay. You can, if something bad happens like this, or you have an injury, it is okay to go to the hospital. Of course, if I like cut my arm off on accident, I would definitely be, insurance aside or not, I'd be like, yes, I'm going to the hospital.
Put this back on.
Yeah, because I could bleed to death. That's a more visual and serious emergency. I mean, hitting your head is a very serious emergency, but I just was very negligent with it. So,
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Definitely not. But I've constantly, I'm like, why did this injury happen? A bunch of people, and I don't believe that. I don't know if I believe that things happen for a reason, or do they not? I don't know. I go back and forth on this a lot, but I can't help but think, like, why did I live? Like, why did I make this careless decision, and then this happened, and then I live, like, constantly asking myself why, like, to a point to where it makes me sick, or I'm going into loops and stuff. And then my dear close friend, this just happened to her, and she's like, I have no idea, like, I'm overwhelmed, this stuff, I'm dizzy, these things, like all these things that she's experiencing, I'm able to validate that and tell her, no, this is normal, hey, don't let them just brush this under the rug and say, oh, you just had a concussion and fractured your skull, blah, 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 like, no, they need to be taking care of you, because it's crucial to take care of it now, as opposed to just neglecting it and just leaving it like I did. It could be a lot worse. I think about that a lot. I'm like, it could be a lot worse than what I have and what I experience right now.
Yeah. That brings me to the question I ask all my guests / friends. is what are the benefits of what you've gone through, if there are any?
Wow, that's something that I've been thinking a lot about. Take a sip of my beer here. What are the benefits? I've been asking myself that a lot, and like, why am I even trying to get help for like my eyes and my dizziness and stuff? I guess the only thing I can think is that I guess have become a fellow survivor and advocate for other people who have just either without their own knowledge got into this world of TBI, like i.e. a car accident or, a terrible accident that happened and now they're here and they're a fellow TBI survivor, or someone like me that just made a poor decision, and not to be, hard on yourself for those decisions, and that mistakes happen and we can learn from them and we can grow from them, and we can take this shitty thing and I guess not make it great. I don't want to make it sound like a cliche or anything of that nature. Just take this shitty thing and do the best you can with it, and share. I'm all about sharing and advocacy and allyship and supporting other people, and just even being like a lending ear or eye to someone that wants to express what they're going through, and to realize that they're not alone in this with TBI. It's crazy how common it is, and it's crazy how much people are just pushed under the rug, and how they think, oh, it's just a little concussion, it ain't nothing, but it can be something, and it can cause numerous other things, or really impede in your life. I don't know if that's like the best answer of what the benefit of this is, but I've been thinking a lot about it lately. I really have, and trying to not get past it, but accept and sit with the survivor's guilt, and not beat myself too hard up on it, because I can do that for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear about survivor's guilt too for something like a traumatic brain injury. I mean, especially that it wasn't like you and somebody else were in the same accident together or something.
Yeah, it was a self-inflicted, and what's crazy ironic, and this is that I am not lying, this is for real, what happened in the moment. Like, I was like, oh, I'm going to be Evel Knievel. I walked over to the scooter, but kind of jogged over, scuffled over, and was like, yeah. And I'm like throwing my leg over the scooter, and I said out loud, this is not a very good idea. And I did it anyway.
Oh, no.
It was like I said, the dumbest thing I think I've ever done in my life. And now here I am. I'm like, oh, wow. It's put me into this world of like TBI and survivors, and realizing that I'm not alone in this experience. And I couldn't help but also think about deaf people that have had TBIs, and do they have access to this information? I mean, deaf people do not have access to podcasts. There might be podcasts that have like transcripts of what was being said, but they're not captioned.
Yeah.
And most of the TBI information that I have found that has been the most beneficial to me has been via podcasts. And so I can't help but wonder, I'm like, oh my gosh, how many deaf people have had traumatic brain injuries? I'm sure a lot of them, because it's a very common injury, but I just couldn't help but wonder. I'm like, oh my gosh, like all these deaf people might not have access to that information. Is there a way that I could figure out how to set up interpreting services for like some of the conferences that they talk about in the podcast? Or is there a way that I can become an advocate, or could I find a deaf person that also is a TBI survivor and offer to interpret for them so that they can share their story as well, so other deaf people can connect? I just couldn't help but think of that avenue, because I've been learning sign language actually for 18 years. I started learning when I was 11 years old. one of my brother's friends' parents were deaf, and I'd never seen sign language or deaf people in my life. Whenever they came over to meet my parents, whenever their son could hear, but they were deaf. So he was a CODA, that means child of deaf adult. And it's a term in like the deaf community, and an identity too in itself. And he's a CODA, and it was his first time staying the night at our house. And so of course his parents wanted to meet the other parents of where he's staying. And they came over, and there's these two deaf people, and their son was interpreting for them. And I was 11 years old, and I'll never forget it. I was just fascinated, and I thought it was so beautiful. So I went and got a sticky note, and I wrote down, I said, could you teach me your language so I could communicate with you? And I went and gave them the sticky note, and they started teaching me sign language, and it's just been history ever since. Took classes in high school, and then I went to college pretty early. I was 17, and then kept changing my major, and then ended up majoring in interpreting, and saw that they had ASL classes there. And just, I think it was like the second day of class, this feeling came over me, and I was like, I just feel like I'm meant to do this. I don't know why, and there's no reasoning why. I just feel like it's right. And I graduated 8 years ago with my degree and got licensed, and I've been interpreting ever since.
That's great.
And thank goodness for this language, because like all the brain physical therapy and I call them brain exercises that they have you do, and like the OT and stuff, is a lot of eye coordination and movement of your head, like same as someone with vertigo and other dizziness issues. They would get the same kind of like OT therapy. I honestly think sign language and the circus stuff just rehabilitated my brain to the functional good level that it's at now. I just have the various weird symptoms that make me fearful that I might fall in like a regular scenario, like me interpreting or me just like standing there or walking through a hallway or at the grocery store or something. And I just don't want to fall and hit my head again.
Was there some funerals or loss and things that happened before the accident?
Yeah, there was one that's pretty intense and personal, that I've shared with a few people who have gone through the same experience, and very close friends of mine. And now that it's been some time, I feel comfortable more so telling people about it and sharing this part of the story. But I actually had a miscarriage before all this happened. I got very sick, didn't know I had miscarried it. I think I was 7 weeks or 8 weeks, and I didn't know I had miscarried it then. And it was several weeks later when I found out. And so I got really sick from not knowing that I had the miscarriage, and just kept living life like everything was fine. And, the baby's healthy and I'm fine and everything's fine, just kept going. And then one day at work, I passed out, and I had never passed out at work. And then ended up, going to the OB-GYN and the doctor and stuff like that. And then got the news, and it was devastating, to say the least. It was not a planned event or a planned like pregnancy or situation. And when you miscarry, they give you the options. There's 3 options. There's the DNC, the surgery, let it naturally happen, or take some pills that expedite the process, that basically like forces your body to like, okay, things need to come out. If not, then you can get very sick. I didn't realize how dangerous, like you could die. I totally didn't realize. Very uneducated in this world of motherhood and stuff like that. I definitely want to be a mom someday, and when it's planned and aware, for lack of a better terms. But so I chose the option of taking the pills, and my partner he and I, we were supposed to be together when it happened. And this doctor's appointment that I got the pills was on like a Wednesday, and he was going to be off work Sunday of that week. And that's when I was planning to take them, and he was going to take care of me, and like monitor me, and in case I need to go to the ER, drive me to the ER, etc. And my parents knew about the whole situation. And my mom, she has all my life, I don't know, my mom is like, she'll call me and be like, what's wrong? And something's wrong. And I'd never told her, never gave her like an indication of something being wrong. She's just like, it's kind of creepy. She's got that like sixth sense. Like, I don't know. I'm like, Mom, that's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool. But she just had this gut feeling that something was up. And she drove into Austin and had lunch with me. And she said, how about you come out to the house and have dinner with us? Like, I'll drive you out there, out to Bastrop. I'll even take you home to your apartment in Austin, like afterwards, because she knew that I wanted to be home and around my animals and whatnot. And so I went out, had dinner with my parents and at their house, and I fell asleep like right after dinner. And that night I woke up at about 3:00 in the morning. I was still at their house, and my body naturally started the process. And my mom knew what was happening, and she's had 3 kids, so she's very aware. She's expert in this situation, and there was too much blood loss going on to where my mom was like, this is not okay. I need to take you to the ER. So she took me to the ER in Bastrop, and they are not that knowledgeable, this one. Not gonna lie. Like, if anybody listens to this and knows Bastrop hospitals, y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, you might as well just duct tape your leg back together.
Oh my God.
And that in itself, that whole experience was awful. They did not have an OB-GYN. The ER doc, he was awful, to say the least, because everything like process and things come out, and he's like, okay, here it is, take it, wad it, and throw it away in the trash right in front of my face. So it was very traumatic, and more like, it's like I'm already having a miscarriage and already having a loss, and then there's like, oh, let's just throw it in the trash. Extra slap in the face. And then I was losing so much blood that I had to be ambulanced from Bastrop to Austin, of course, and go to the hospital that my original OB-GYN doctor was at. And then I had to have an emergency D&C surgery. And I almost had to get like a blood transfusion. And so also, mind you, this whole entire process, my partner did not once show up to the hospital or text me or call me to make sure I was okay or anything. It was probably one of the most isolating experiences ever. But that had happened before the TBI, and that grief led to just me honestly not really giving a fuck about myself. Like, I just did not take care of myself, did not care about myself, to be honest. And I just started doing reckless and dumb things, and hence the idea for trying to ramp a scooter without a helmet going 45 miles an hour, like flew and landed I don't weigh that much, but I landed all my entire body weight, all on the side of my head. Like, it gives me cringes to think about it. But I believe that grief and that initial loss led to just a whole and spiral of carelessness and recklessness, and just honestly not giving a shit about myself. That sounds really sad and cynical and negative, but it's the truth. It's just the truth. So
Yeah.
And it took me, God, like 2 years to even be able to talk about the miscarriage and what had happened, and realize, like, now, many years later, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6 years later, I'm very content with where I'm at. If things have gone through, I honestly don't know how I would have navigated so many losses and tragedies in my friend circle, in my family circle, and in my fur baby circle. I have no idea how I would have processed and still am processing through the grief and navigating that whole aspect of life with a child and being a single mom. I do not know how I would have gotten through that. I don't think I could have. It just wasn't time, you know?
Yeah.
And I know that's a very deep and it's a heavy conversation, but it's a huge reality. Miscarriages are incredibly common and such a not talked about thing. I mean, it's sad. It's no one wants to talk about it. I don't necessarily I'm not like, oh yeah, let's sit around a campfire and talk about this, but it's such a reality and such a often common thing that happens, but when it happens to you, you feel so isolated and you feel like you're the only person in the world that it's happening to. And of all the things that I've gone through and the trauma that I've gone through, not even to childhood trauma, like all the things, the times where I have felt the most, I don't want to say comfort in what happened, but like solidarity or like that I'm not crazy or I'm not alone or something, is when someone else has talked about it. And I'm like, I get those chills or like stories at bedpost or confessions or things that people say. And I'm just like, there's an indescribable feeling that sets in. And then you realize, whoa, I'm not alone in this. I don't know. I think that is just very important. And I think I don't want to say like normalize the talk of miscarriage or share those stories. And everyone, it's up to their own discretion if they want to share that or not, of course. But I think if it was not such a, I don't know, like walking on eggshells kind of thing, and people shared it and opened up into those stories, that it would bring that indescribable feeling that I'm talking about, that I've gotten from other people who've shared their stories.
I'm glad you shared yours.
Thanks. This is crazy. I didn't think I was going to be able to like talk this long or talk at all. I like I said, I don't often talk about me or anything. And definitely this, in telling all of this and sharing my experience, I'm not looking for like, oh, feel bad for me or pity or anything of that sort. It's more so of that same experience, like I mentioned, that I've had when other survivors of trauma and other things that I've experienced, when they have shared their story, it just resonates and just like, and I don't even have to tell them. I'm just like, oh my God, y'all don't even realize. And you sharing that, it just like gave me life. It gave me like hope. And I hope in sharing my experience and story that other people can find that feeling and find that fire inside to change their life or to care about themselves more and to not make careless, reckless decisions if possible, and just to be more careful, because everyone's precious. Everyone's brain is precious. Brains are so complex and such beautiful organs that I just can't even believe that I've hit mine so many times and what mine does with interpreting and that process alone and just human beings. I'm just like, everyone just take care of that precious, beautiful noggin of yours. Don't hit it. If you can avoid it, just don't hit it.
Thank you so much. It's just, I think this has been a great help for other people, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks. And it's been really cool chatting with you and sharing my story and listening to your podcast. I'm definitely going to listen to more because I know a lot of fellow friends and people that we know have been on there, and I'm curious. I'm curious. I'm signing curious too at the same time right now.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks again to Shelby Sunflower for sharing her story. And I'd also like to thank Shelby for suggesting, on behalf of the deaf community, that I transcribe this interview. And this is the first one. There'll be more, I'm sure. So if you'd like to read the interview or know someone who might, visit friendswithdeficitspodcast.com. And while you're there, please sign up for our newsletter. Also, would you like to help support the show? And while you're doing that, receive exclusive updates and unpublished material, and a few other goodies while keeping Friends with Deficits healthy and strong? Visit patreon.com/friendswithdeficits for more information and join the growing community that's keeping the arts alive in Austin, Texas, and beyond. That's patreon.com/friendswithdeficits. As always, I'm Adam Sultan, and here's some safe advice. Ride easy. It's crazy out there. Doesn't mean you have to be. Ciao.